from our studios in Atlanta, this is Car Biz Today. And here now, Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us on another edition of CBT News. Every dealer knows that today's car shoppers want more control of the car buying experience. They expect more information, transparency, and online transaction capabilities. Here to give us an update on all things digital retailing is Pete MacInnis, founder and CEO of eLEND Solutions, and Steve Finlay, editor of WardsAuto magazine. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today on CBT.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Steve, let's start with you. You had an article recently in WardsAuto. Does automotive digital retailing promise more than it can deliver? Talk to us about that article that you wrote.
Well, a lot of it was based on a study that Pete's organization did, and what it found I thought was interesting is that dealers are keen on digital retailing. You know, everybody thinks that dealers are reluctant about it, but it actually works for them. It has the customer doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and as long as the profit margins, aren't hurt by doing it digitally versus in store, what's the matter? It's easier, actually. You have the customer doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And now with the study I thought got into that was interesting is like, okay, especially when it comes to financing, how much of the information is accurate, especially if you're using something as simple as a payment calculator. Granted, the customer isn't giving a whole lot of financial information, and therefore they're getting some broad parameters, but that information should be relatively accurate, if not down to the penny, because what the study has found, and it really reflects human nature, is if it's inaccurate information, that's a major turnoff. You got the dealer has to unwind the deal sometimes. It just doesn't do the job like it's supposed to do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Pete, from your perspective, what are the issues out there today in this regard, and what needs to change in the marketplace in order for this to be more of a smoother process for the consumer and the dealer?
Well, I think there's so much focus and emphasis put on the consumer's experience. And of course, it's very important and relevant, but I think most of the industry is really missing the obvious. And from a consumer's perspective, from a dealer's perspective, it's really about the dealer's process. But when it comes down to it, there's three elements that are critical. It's about negotiating real terms of the price of the vehicle, trade-in valuation, and in this subject matter, we're really focusing and zeroing in on qualified real payment terms for the customer that becomes reality, as Steve was referring to. So I think, the three legs of the stool, two of the three are kind of moving along pretty well in the evolution of digital retailing, but the finance aspect of it still has tremendous friction and disconnects that's creating as much problems as it is solutions at this stage of the growth of the evolution of it. I think that there's still a large trust gap between the consumer and the dealer in the process, and I really believe most of that's around the finance aspect of the transaction.
Right.
I'd like to chime in on two things. One is that sometimes it's not the dealer's fault. A lot of times it's not the dealer's fault. If there is some imponderable discovered in the customer's financing situation. I mean, financing is very tricky, and one of the reasons is because there's so many aspects of the consumer's personal financial picture, and sometimes the consumer might not be forthcoming with some of those things. So it really is kind of a feel along the maze walls for a while anyways.
Besides profits, what do dealers want to get out of digital retailing? I'll let either one of you take that.
Pete, go ahead.
I think for dealers, really, it becomes very simplistic. The dealers really want to sell more cars faster with increased profitability. That's really simplistic about that, and I think that's part that it doesn't get the focus it should have. And so digital retailing should really be something around connecting the online consumer to the in-store process. I think the dealer really wants to leverage technology to remove bottlenecks, disconnect, and profit leaks in the transaction. And I think truly that's what digital retailing is. It doesn't matter whether it's online or in-store. It's about how do we create efficiencies for the dealer that empowers them to sell more cars faster and increase profitability.
And so many dealers out there right now are trying to get their hands around this, right? Because most of the dealers that we talk to here at CBT are like, well, it's down the pike. It's not right now. People still want to come in and kick the tires and see the showroom. And
well, they do.
I find that to be somewhat naive on the dealer's part to think that this isn't coming down the pike much faster and that the consumers aren't going to be driving this in a very big way to go, no. If we can sit on our couch or in our office and go online and do, the entire transaction right there in the comfort of our living room, then I'm going to go find the retailer that's going to help me with that. I mean, we all do business with Amazon, and the reason we do that is because of selection, price, and convenience, right? And I think people demand that now in the auto sector, or will be in a bigger way, right?
They do, and there's no reason that they can't go to the dealership. I think Pete had indicated that they want to go to the dealership, to finish the deal.
Right.
So everybody's happy. Now, I wanted to ask Pete what he thinks of like online self-desking tools, and how do they cause friction within the negotiating process? I'd like your thoughts on that, if you would, please.
Well, you addressed a part of it in the survey results from the dealer's perspective and how they felt about it, about the friction. So absolutely. When you think, it's almost comical to think about a customer self-desking a deal. Where we're really lacking is the transparency from the lender program. So let me give you a specific example. Before you even get to that customer's qualifications, you have to qualify the vehicle. So let's look at it from an OEM captive finance perspective. And let me give an example of this. If you talk about a consumer self-desking a deal, when you look at the dealership, you've got sales manager, desk managers. They do this. They're professionals, highly paid, highly compensated for being experts at desking deals. They do it every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year for 20 years. And that best case scenario, it is still educated guesswork from their perspective. And so how does a dealer can't even determine the profitability of that when you have to look at 500 different data points to get down to determine, is this customer best on the standard program, an incentive program, or a dealer region program? And then you get all the loan to value issues. And we're talking about this before you even get to the customer's qualifications, right? Debt to income, payment to income ratios, loan to values. Are certain vehicles available for 84 months? But if you go above a certain dollar amount, by $1 on the amount financed, now 84 is no longer available. You can only get it on 72, and we'll pay participation on 72, but not 84 months. Okay, so you're going to hand that over to a consumer to desk that deal? Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous.
As you know, most dealers are a little nervous, to say the least, about the loss of F&I gross profit as we move into further down the road in digital retailing. What's your take on that? Is that a valid concern on their part, or do you think, as some F&I companies will tell you, no, there's going to be plenty of F&I money, on the back end of these deals, even though they are, done over the internet?
My take would be, real quickly, that yes, I think they will continue to make money off F&I. They're going to figure out how to do that. That's a big profit center, and to give up the battle on that would be crazy. And there's no reason that you couldn't use digital to enhance that. Now, I wonder about the future of F&I managers. I see the trend more and more of those positions being eliminated, and the salesperson doing that job. You hear the pro and con, like they got enough to do without doing F&I, and that's not going to happen. But it possibly could happen. It's been tested by some dealerships. What's interesting is the F&I managers typically were great salespeople on the floor, and then they become F&I managers.
Right.
So if you were to eliminate the F&I department, and I don't see that, in the immediate future, but there's talk about doing that. If you were to do that, those F&I managers would probably be back on the sales floor. So they wouldn't be like showing the door of the dealership.
That's right.
If I can add to that, I think the digital retailing, where it brings value to that, is when you think a consumer wants to do more of the process online. The good news about that is, up until this point, the consumer's been hiding behind their computer screen, behind that curtain. They've done all of their an extensive amount of research about the vehicle and what they're looking to buy, but the dealers has had very little transparency about the consumer's buying power. But now that you're moving towards doing a deal online in e-commerce, that really shifts the information pendulum advantage back towards the dealer. And when you do that, the consumer has to give up all of their information in order to facilitate that. So now by the time you get to the finance, it's not an interview process. It's not trying to sort out and figure out, can this customer buy this car? Are they on the right car with the right deal structure? If you have all of that information earlier in the process and it's all accurate, and you can put a negotiated deal to real finance terms up front, that really frees up the F&I manager now to actually focus and spend their quality time on selling those F&I products. So I think the F&I aspect is going to benefit from all this.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I know right now dealers are trying to line up, who the vendors out there that can help them as they, navigate this digital retailing. Obviously, eLEND's got a great name out there in helping dealers do just that. But how long do you think it'll be before we see the majority of vehicles being sold digitally or online, within the market?
I mean, I would argue they are being sold online. I mean, if people are doing so much work and then go to the dealership to wrap up the deal or to have their decision confirmed, what would the percentage be? 70, 80, 90%? Pete was right in terms of it is so complicated behind the scenes. And you want to make it simple for the customer, but that doesn't mean, you start dispersing incorrect information and saying, well, we're keeping it simple. The challenge for the people behind the scenes, people like Pete's organization, is to have all that stuff going on, condense it into a product that makes it easy and accurate. That's kind of the brass ring, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that transition from the online shopping and, to Steve's point, getting as much done of it upfront as you can. So by the time they get to the dealership, it's such a big purchase for the consumer. What they really want to know is when they get there, is there an affirmation of what they already negotiated and a confirmation of that, yes, this is what I really want to do. This is the vehicle that I want. And the deal structure meets expectation. So the expectation of online is fulfilled in the dealership, and that's done in a very, very efficient, quick manner, and that's really the key to all of it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I'd also add real quickly, and this is kind of a soft point, is that what happens at the dealership after all that's been done online. One of the things that happens is the delivery of the car, and that should be a really special moment. Some dealers really make that a big deal, and others just like, here's your keys, and we'll tell you a little bit about it. But that customer is getting their car. That's an exciting moment that's taking place at the dealership, and a dealer should really capitalize on that.
So Pete MacInnis of eLEND Solutions and Steve Finlay, editor of WardsAuto magazine. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. This has been very enlightening, and we get a tremendous amount of great feedback from our viewers whenever we air programs like this that have to do with digital retailing, because it's coming.
All right, thank you, Jim.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the official news source of the retail automotive industry. This has been a JBF Business Media production.